Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for, well, a colossal journey across millennia. We're zeroing in on three absolutely monumental efforts that really define human ingenuity and maybe our fragility too.
That's right. We're talking about the Egyptian pyramids, those incredibly organized cities of the Indus Valley Civilization, and Stonehenge, that evolving mysterious calendar in stone.
We'll be using archaeological finds, geological studies, even some cutting-edge scanning data, really trying to push past the standard history lesson.
Yeah, this is a deep dive into the why, the organizational genius, the belief systems, the logistics behind these mega projects. How do they pull it off?
Exactly. Our mission isn't just what they built, but why whole civilizations poured, decades of resources into these things, what drove them.
And how do they adapt or maybe fail to adapt to challenges?
Yeah.
We're looking for those engineering aha moments, but also the social and environmental stuff.
So the plan is start with the pyramids, peak ambition and organization, then head east to the Indus Valley, amazing urban planning, but a quiet decline.
And we finish up in Neolithic Britain with Stonehenge, tracing its 1,500-year evolution as this temple built to track time itself.
Okay, let's start this deep dive. Let's confront the incredible scale of Egypt first. Right, so when we talked pyramids, especially the Great Pyramid of Khufu at Giza, the numbers are just staggering, aren't they?
They really are. Originally 481 feet tall, built from something like 2.3 million stone blocks.
2.3 million. The scale alone forces you to ask, just how?
And it's not just the number, it's the weight. The average block is maybe 2 to 5 tons, but some up to 15 tons, even more for the granite beams.
15 tons, and achieving this, 4,500 years ago? Without modern machinery, no steel, no engines.
It points to a level of organization that's it's almost more impressive than the engineering itself.
And the common idea is always, oh, it's a tomb. Just a really, really big tomb for the pharaoh.
Right, the extravagant tomb theory.
But if it was only a tomb, why the incredible precision? Why the astronomical alignment? Seems like overkill just to bury someone, doesn't it?
Exactly. Our sources really emphasize this spiritual imperative here. Pharaohs like Khufu, Khafre, they weren't just kings. They were seen as divine intermediaries.
Connecting heaven and earth, sort of.
Precisely. The pyramid wasn't just a burial place. It was an engine for ensuring the king's eternal journey, his success in the afterlife. That, in turn, guaranteed the stability and prosperity of the entire kingdom on earth.
Ah, so it's all linked. The king's journey ensures the Nile floods, the sun rises.
Exactly. It's about aligning the earthly realm with the cosmic order, the stars, the rhythm of the Nile. The king was connecting himself, and by extension Egypt, to the eternal cycles.
So that's the motivation. It wasn't just vanity. It was seen as existentially necessary for everyone.
That shared belief seems to be the engine. It unified society, making this decades-long, logistically mind-bending project a national priority.
Which brings us to maybe the biggest myth, right? The idea that millions of slaves built the pyramids under the lash.
Yeah, that image is powerful, often traced back to Greek historians like Herodotus, but the archaeology tells a very different story.
What did they find? Worker villages.
Exactly. Excavations near the pyramids uncovered settlements for the workforce, and what we see there completely challenges the slavery narrative.
No chains and dungeons, then.
Quite the opposite. We find evidence of huge bakeries capable of producing vast amounts of bread, breweries for beer rations.
Beer rations. So they were paid, in a sense.
Paid in essentials, absolutely. Bread, beer, fish, meat, and crucially, medical facilities. We find skeletons with bones that were broken, but then properly set and healed. That's not how you treat disposable slave labor.
Wow. So who were these workers, then?
Likely skilled Egyptian laborers. Many were probably farmers, conscripted perhaps, or volunteering during the annual Nile flood season.
When the fields were underwater anyway. Makes sense. A kind of national service.
Something like that. A massive, centrally organized national project. Estimates suggest maybe 20,000 to 30,000 people working at any one time, possibly rotating in shifts over the, 20-plus years it took to build Khufu's pyramid.
30,000 people. The logistics of just feeding and housing that many, it's staggering. Think about the supply chains needed. Dedicated cattle farms just to provide meat, grain silos, water, tools, shelter. It required an incredibly sophisticated bureaucracy.
And they were buried nearby? With honor?
Yes. Cemeteries for the workers have been found close to the pyramids. They were buried with tools, pottery, provisions for the afterlife. That indicates respect, value. They weren't slaves. They were contributors to this sacred national effort.
So the real genius wasn't just lifting stone. It was managing people on an unprecedented scale. That centralization is key. Hashtag tag tag 1.3 material transport and ingenuity.
Okay, so you've got the organized workforce. Now, how do you get the materials, the sheer volume of stone?
Right. We know the bulk of the core was local limestone, quarried right there on the Giza Plateau. Easy enough, relatively speaking.
Relatively, yeah.
Yeah.
But the finer materials, the smooth white Tura limestone for the outer casing that had to be brought from across the Nile.
And the really tough stuff, the granite.
Ah, the granite. Needed for the inner chambers, the sarcophagus.
Yeah.
Incredibly hard, incredibly heavy. That came all the way from Aswan. Aswan, that's what, over 500 miles away, upriver?
Over 500 miles, yes. Transporting blocks weighing dozens of tons, maybe 50, 60 tons for some of the King's Chamber lintels that distance, without engines. It's unbelievable.
How did they even cut it without steel tools?
Great question. They used copper chisels, which are relatively soft, especially for granite. They also used harder stone pounders and hammers. But the real trick for splitting large blocks seems to have been using wooden wedges.
Wooden wedges? How does that work on granite?
They'd cut slots or drill holes, jam in wooden wedges, and then soak them with water. The wood expands with incredible force, enough to crack the granite along planned lines. Simple physics, but genius application.
Okay, so they cut the blocks. Then the 500-mile journey. The Nile has to be the answer, right?
Absolutely. The Nile was the logistical superhighway, and recent studies using satellite imagery are confirming what people suspected. There's an ancient branch of the Nile closer to Giza than the river is today.
The Aramat branch, the Pyramids branch.
That's the one. It seems it was active during the Old Kingdom when the pyramids were built. During the annual flood season, the water levels would rise significantly,
Allowing heavy barges carrying the Aswan granite and Tura limestone to get much, much closer to the construction site.
potentially right to the base. Via specially dug canals or harbors, they could unload massive blocks practically on site. It solves a huge part of the transport puzzle.
But there's still that last bit, right? Getting the blocks from the quarry or the dock onto the pyramid itself. That's where the sledges come in.
Yes, depictions show large wooden sledges being pulled by teams of workers. But pulling multi-ton blocks across sand, the friction would be immense.
This is where that water on the sand idea comes in. You mentioned it earlier, but I'm still trying to picture it. Wouldn't it just make mud?
You'd think so. But experiments, like the one published in Physical Review Letters, showed something amazing. If you pour just the right amount of water onto desert sand, it makes the sand firm.
Not muddy, but firm.
Exactly. It binds the sand particles together, stopping that annoying pileup of sand in front of the sledge runners. It actually reduces the friction by about half.
Halves the effort. So maybe 100 men could do the work of 200.
Potentially. It's a small detail, but it could be one of those ingenious low-tech solutions that made the impossible possible. A really clever understanding of materials. Hashtag tag tag 1.4 assembly and astronomical precision.
Okay, stone quarried, transported, possibly with damp sand helping. Now the big one, getting those blocks up, hundreds of feet up, the ramps.
The ramp debate. Still no definitive consensus, which is part of the enduring mystery.
The idea of one long, straight ramp, that seems physically unlikely, right? The sheer volume of material needed for the ramp itself.
It would have been enormous, possibly more material than the pyramid itself, and would need to stretch over a mile long to maintain a workable gradient. Most experts think that's impractical.
So what are the other main theories? Zigzag ramps.
Zigzag or switchback ramps going up one face is one possibility. Another popular idea is a ramp that spiraled around the outside of the pyramid as it grew taller.
I've also heard about the possibility of internal ramps hidden within the structure. That sounds incredibly complex to build.
It does. Some recent scans hint at possible internal features, but it's still debated. The most likely scenario, honestly. Probably a combination of methods.
Like a large external ramp for the massive lower layers, and then maybe smaller, perhaps internal or spiraling ramps for the upper, lighter blocks?
That seems plausible, using different techniques as the height and weight requirements changed. But whatever method or methods they used, the precision they achieved is just breathtaking.
Yeah, the sides rise at, what, a near-perfect 51.5-degree angle, and the base is almost perfectly level across acres. How did they manage that levelness?
Likely using water. Digging shallow trenches around the base, filling them with water and marking the level line. Simple, effective, brilliant.
And the alignment. It's aligned almost perfectly to the cardinal points, north, south, east, west.
Through careful astronomical observation. They could have used the sun's shadow at the equinoxes, or tracked the movement of stars, perhaps circumpolar stars like Kochab and Mizar around Polaris, to find true north. It shows a deep understanding of the sky.
And that connection to the stars isn't just symbolic, it's built right in, isn't it? Those shafts in the king's chamber?
Exactly. They're often called ventilation shafts, but they're too small and angled for that. They align precisely with certain stars or constellations, like Orion's Belt and Sirius, as they were positioned in the sky 4,500 years ago.
So the idea was they were pathways for the pharaoh's soul.
That's the prevailing theory. They were conduits, physical guides for the king's spirit, his Ba, to ascend and join the circumpolar stars, the imperishable ones, ensuring his eternal life and, by extension, Egypt's stability, its architecture as theology. #tag 1.5 Enduring Mysteries in Modern Scans.
Given all this sophistication, it's no wonder there are still so many theories, some maybe a bit fringe, about hidden secrets within the pyramids.
Absolutely. People have speculated about everything. You mentioned water earlier. Some have wondered about rudimentary hydraulic lifts. We know they understood water pressure. Early step pyramids like Djoser's have complex underground channels linked to the Nile.
Could they have adapted that to help lift blocks at Giza? It sounds far-fetched, but
It's highly speculative, with little direct evidence at Giza itself, but it shows how people grapple with the sheer scale, looking for some lost technology.
what about things like acoustics? I've heard the king's chamber has strange resonant properties.
It does seem to. Experiments have shown specific acoustic patterns and resonance frequencies. Whether the builders understood and intentionally designed this, perhaps for ritual chanting or inducing altered states,
Wow.
that's much harder to prove.
But these enduring mysteries are why modern technology is so exciting here, right? Like muon scanning.
Exactly. Muon tomography is a game changer for non-invasively probing these massive structures.
Can you briefly explain how that works for anyone unfamiliar?
Sure. Muons are subatomic particles created when cosmic rays hit the Earth's atmosphere. They rain down constantly and can penetrate hundreds of meters of rock.
Like a natural X-ray.
Sort of, yeah. By placing detectors inside or around the pyramid, scientists can measure the flow of muons passing through. If there's a large void or chamber inside, fewer muons will be absorbed or deflected on that path, so the detectors register a hotspot.
And this has actually found things.
It has. The Scan Pyramids project famously detected a large void, at least 30 meters long, located above the Grand Gallery in Khufu's pyramid, dubbed the Big Void.
Wow. Do we know what it is yet?
Not for sure. It could be a structural feature, maybe relieving stress on the gallery below, or it could be another chamber, perhaps hidden intentionally. It proves there are still secrets inside.
It's incredible. After 4,500 years, these structures built with such centralized ambition are still revealing things.
They really are. The pyramids show what a unified vision and incredible organization can achieve.
Okay, so if Egypt mastered centralized labor for monumental building, let's pivot. Let's look at the Indus Valley Civilization. Masters of urban planning, but a very, very different outcome.
Right. The Indus Valley Civilization, or IVC, we're talking vast, flourishing around 3,300 BCE to maybe 1,300 BCE. Geographically, it was huge, bigger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined, over 1 million square kilometers.
And their cities, Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, they're famous for their planning, aren't they?
Absolutely phenomenal urban planning. We see meticulously laid out grid streets, houses built with standardized fire-baked bricks, not just sun-dried mud bricks, multi-story dwellings.
It sounds incredibly advanced for the time, more organized than many European cities thousands of years later.
Especially the sanitation. They had covered drains running beneath the streets, elaborate bathing platforms, even suggestions of private toilets connected to the main drainage system in some houses. Public health seems to have been a major priority.
That level of planning, that standardization, it suggests a different kind of society than Egypt, doesn't it? You mentioned earlier we don't see giant pyramids or obvious palaces.
Exactly. There's a striking lack of monumental temples dedicated to specific gods, or massive royal palaces dominating the cityscape. No obvious portraits of mighty kings.
So what does that suggest? A more egalitarian society? Or maybe just organized differently?
It's debated. Perhaps more emphasis on collective well-being, trade, agriculture, maybe governed by committees of merchants or priests, or a more bureaucratic system rather than a single divine monarch. Their focus was clearly on infrastructure and trade.
Trade? What were they trading?
They cultivated wheat, barley, cotton. They were likely the first to cultivate cotton for textiles. They had domesticated cattle, water buffalo, possibly elephants, and their trade routes were extensive. Reaching Mesopotamia, we find Indus seals there and the Arabian Peninsula. They traded things like carnelian beads, timber, cotton, maybe lapis lazuli.
And they had standardized weights and measures across this huge area.
Yes, sets of cubical weights. remarkably consistent across hundreds of sites. It shows incredible economic integration and control.
But the big frustration is the script, right? Those seals have writing, but we can't read it.
That's the million-dollar question. Over 400 unique symbols, maybe logosyllabic like Sumerian cuneiform, but completely undeciphered. It's like looking at their identity cards without knowing the language.
Yeah.
Their worldview, their myths, their history. It's locked away.
A silent civilization in a way. Hashtag tag 2.2, the symptoms of decline. The fade, not the fall.
And maybe that silence contributes to the mystery surrounding their decline. But the evidence suggests it wasn't a sudden collapse, more like a slow fade.
A transformation, not a dramatic fall.
Precisely. By around 1900 BCE, we enter what's called the late Harappan phase. And the archaeology starts showing signs of stress.
What kind of signs?
Gradual abandonment of the big urban centers. Infrastructure starts to crumble. Drains aren't maintained as well. Streets get narrower as people build makeshift structures, encroaching on public space. Quality building declines.
So gradual decay, people moving away from the big cities.
It seems so. A shift towards smaller, more rural settlements. Mohenjo-Daro, for instance, shows layers upon layers of silt deposits.
Silt, meaning floods. Repeated floods.
Yes, indicating recurrent, possibly devastating flooding was becoming a major problem there. In Harappa, we see large houses being subdivided into smaller, cramped living spaces. It suggests overcrowding, resources stretched thin.
But importantly, no signs of a big war or invasion. The old Aryan invasion theory is out.
Largely discredited, yes. While there might have been localized conflict, there's no widespread archaeological evidence, no burned cities across the board, no layers of ash and weapons, no mass graves to support a large-scale military conquest being the cause of the decline.
So if it wasn't war, what was it?
The focus shifts dramatically towards environmental factors. The very rivers that nurtured the civilization may have betrayed them.
Oh, so? Did the rivers dry up?
It looks like it, at least partially. Geological studies and satellite imagery suggest major changes in the river systems. The Gagar-Hakra river system, which flowed parallel to the Indus further east.
Many people identify that with the legendary Sarasvati River from Vedic texts, right?
Exactly. That river system appears to have gradually dried up. Tectonic shifts might have diverted its headwaters, or climate change reduced the flow from glaciers. Its ancient, massive riverbed is clearly visible from space, now mostly dry desert.
Losing a major river. That would be catastrophic for agriculture in that region?
Absolutely devastating. And it seems this coincided with broader climate shifts happening around 2000 BCE.
What kind of shifts?
Evidence from sediment cores drilled in the Arabian Sea, from lake beds in the region, even stalagmites in caves, points to a significant weakening of the Indian summer monsoon.
Less rain. For civilization dependent on monsoon agriculture.
Yes, a prolonged period of reduced monsoon rainfall, leading to drought, especially in the areas away from the main Indus River floodplain. So they faced this double whammy, drying rivers in some areas, possibly more erratic and destructive floods in others, like Mohenjo-Daro, and widespread drought impacting harvests. A perfect environmental storm. Hashtags 2.4, human interaction with the environment.
Okay, so climate change and river shifts played a huge role, but did the Indus people themselves contribute? Could they have overstressed their environment?
That's a very important question, and the answer is likely yes. Like many successful ancient societies, their own success might have sown the seeds of later problems.
How? Deforestation.
That's a major factor. Think about those millions upon millions of standardized fire-baked bricks used to build their cities. Firing those bricks requires enormous amounts of fuel wood.
So they'd be cutting down forests on a massive scale over centuries.
Plausibly, yes. And large-scale deforestation leads to soil erosion. Topsoil washes away, silts up the rivers, potentially worsening the flooding problem we see evidence for.
And what about their farming? Could intensive irrigation cause issues?
Yes, salinization is a classic problem in irrigated river valleys, especially in arid or semi-arid climates. If you irrigate heavily and drainage isn't perfect, salts naturally present in the soil get drawn to the surface as water evaporates.
Making the land less fertile over time.
Exactly. Eventually, it can render prime agricultural land unusable. It's a slow, creeping environmental degradation that can undermine the food base of a civilization.
Is there direct evidence for this environmental stress, like changes in plants or animals?
There is. Pollen analysis from archaeological sites shows shifts over time, from pollen indicating more trees and water-loving plants toward species associated with drier, scrubbier environments. Animal bone finds also show changes, with species adapted to wetter conditions decreasing relative to drought-resistant ones. It all points to significant environmental pressure, partly natural, partly human-induced. Hashtag tag tag 2.5 transformation, not disappearance.
So, facing failing rivers, weaker monsoons, possibly degraded land, what did they do? Did they just vanish?
The evidence suggests not vanishing, but transforming, adapting, migrating.
Moving away from the core areas that were drying out.
Exactly. There appears to have been a significant population shift eastward towards the Ganges and Yamuna River plains. These areas had more reliable rainfall, less dependence on the Indus or Gagar-Hakra.
So the collapse was actually a slow-motion migration, a strategic retreat to better watered lands.
That seems to be the current understanding. We see the emergence of smaller villages and towns in the Ganges Plain during the late Harappan and post-Harappan periods. They show cultural continuity, similar pottery styles, agricultural practices, but adapting and mixing with local cultures already there.
So the people didn't disappear. Their large, unified urban phase ended, but the population dispersed and carried on.
Precisely. Genetic studies also link modern populations in South Asia directly back to the Indus Valley people. Their legacy is woven into the fabric of the subcontinent. It wasn't an ending, but a metamorphosis.
Still, that undeciphered script, it leaves such a hole, doesn't it? We know what happened broadly, but we can't hear their story of it. Their perspective on the floods, the droughts, the move east. It's silent.
A profound silence. A civilization that mastered urban planning and endured major climate shifts, yet left us unable to read their thoughts. It's a stark reminder of what can be lost to time.
Okay. Egypt showed centralized ambition. The IVC showed vulnerability to environmental change despite great planning. Now let's go to Britain and Stonehenge, a monument not just built, but constantly rebuilt, mastering time itself.
Stonehenge. It looms so large in our imagination, often pictured as this single static monument dropped onto Salisbury Plain.
But that's not the story at all, is it? It wasn't built in one go.
Not even close. It's crucial to understand Stonehenge as an evolving monument. Its construction and modification span an incredible 1,500 years, roughly from 3000 BCE well into the Bronze Age, maybe around 1500 BCE.
1,500 years. That's like the time between the fall of Rome and the invention of the internet. Different cultures, different beliefs, all working on the same site.
Inheriting it, adapting it, adding to it, changing its meaning perhaps. It bridges the late Neolithic and the early Bronze Age. It was a project passed down through countless generations.
And it wasn't just the stones we see today, right? It was part of a much bigger complex.
A whole ritual landscape. You have the River Avon connected by the avenue, other timber structures like Woodhenge nearby, and crucially, the massive settlement site at Durrington Walls.
Durrington Walls. That's where they found evidence of huge feasts.
Incredible evidence. Vast pits filled with pig bones mainly. Enough to suggest thousands of people gathered there seasonally, perhaps the builders of Stonehenge feasting during construction phases, or pilgrims attending major festivals. It points to Stonehenge being a central gathering place for people across southern Britain.
So what was the very first phase? Around 3000 BCE?
The first major construction was actually the earthwork. A large circular ditch and bank, the henge itself, dug using simple tools, antler picks, shoulder blades as shovels.
And inside that, the Aubrey holes.
Yes, a ring of 56 pits just inside the bank. What they originally held is debated, maybe timber posts, maybe marker stones. Later, many of them were used for cremation burials. Some theories suggest they might have been used to predict lunar eclipses or track other cycles. The very beginning was already complex. Hashtag tag 3.2, the logistical marvel of stone transport.
Okay, so first the earthwork, then came the stones. And moving those stones, that's the real logistical head-scratcher, isn't it? Especially the blue stones.
The blue stones are extraordinary. They're the smaller stones in the inner circles and horseshoe. Smaller, being relative, they still weigh 2 to 4 tons each.
And the mystery is where they came from.
Exactly. Geochemical analysis has pinpointed their origin with incredible accuracy. The Presley Hills in West Wales.
Wales, that's how far?
Over 140 miles away, as the crow flies. Probably much further via any feasible land or water route.
Hauling 4-ton stones 140 miles, 4,500 years ago. Why? Why go all that way?
That's the million-pound question.
Yeah.
Were the quarries themselves sacred? Did the stones have special acoustic properties? Was there a belief in their healing powers? Some springs near the quarries were associated with healing. The motivation must have been incredibly powerful to justify that immense effort.
How might they have moved them? Any ideas?
Theories abound. Maybe hauled overland on wooden sledges rolling over logs, perhaps floated on rafts along the Welsh coast, up the Bristol Channel, and then overland or up rivers like the Avon. Some even suggest complex systems using inflated animal hides. Whatever the method, it required massive, coordinated human effort over long periods.
Okay, so the blue stones are the long-distance mystery. What about the big ones? The Sarsens?
Ah, the giants. The familiar large uprights and lintels of the main circle and trilithons. These are Sarsen sandstone. They weigh much more, up to 30, maybe even 40 tons for the biggest ones.
Where did they come from? Please don't say Wales again.
No, thankfully. They came from Marlborough Downs, about 20 miles north of Stonehenge. Still a huge challenge to move 30-ton blocks 20 miles with Neolithic technology, but feasible compared to the Bluestone journey.
And getting them upright, putting the lintels on top, that's another feat. I heard they use woodworking joints.
They did. It's incredible. The tops of the upright Sarsens have protruding tenons like pegs. The undersides of the lintels have corresponding mortise holes carved into them. They slot together.
Like giant Lego bricks?
Kind of. And where the lintels meet each other in the outer circle, they use tongue and groove joints to lock them together securely. It shows sophisticated carpentry techniques applied to massive stone, likely to ensure stability against wind and ground shifts.
How would they shape them so precisely?
Painstakingly. Using large stone mauls, basically heavy stone hammers to chip away at the sarsen, gradually shaping it. Then likely grinding and polishing surfaces using sand and water as an abrasive. Immense amounts of labor. Hashtag 3.3 astronomical alignments and multifunctional purpose. So they go to all this effort, shaping, transporting, erecting. It clearly wasn't just about building something impressive. It had purpose. And astronomy seems key.
The solstice alignment is the most famous one, right? The main axis aligns with the midsummer sunrise and the midwinter sunset.
Yes, the avenue leading away from the entrance and the heelstone frame the midsummer sunrise beautifully. This would have been crucial for marking the turning of the year, perhaps timing agricultural cycles or major festivals.
But it's more complex than just the solstices. You mentioned lunar cycles earlier.
Potentially, yes. Some researchers, like Gerald Hawkins back in the 60s, proposed alignments with extreme positions of the moonrise and moonset the lunar standstills, which follow a complex 18.6-year cycle. The station stones, 4 stones set roughly in a rectangle around the periphery, might relate to this.
Encoding that kind of long-term astronomical knowledge without writing, that's remarkable.
It really is. It suggests a society deeply attuned to celestial cycles, needing to track them for practical and probably ritual reasons over generations.
And it wasn't just an observatory. You mentioned burials.
Yes, definitely a major funerary site, especially in the earlier phases. Over 200 cremation burials have been found within the ditch, the bank, and particularly in the Aubrey holes. It seems it was a significant place to inter the dead, perhaps important ancestors or elite individuals.
A place of the ancestors. And maybe healing, too. You mentioned the blue stones might have been seen as having healing powers.
That's another intriguing theory. Isotope analysis of some skeletons found near Stonehenge show individuals who grew up far away, possibly even from Wales or Ireland or continental Europe. Some show signs of injury or illness.
So pilgrims coming for cures.
It's possible. The idea that the blue stones, brought with such effort from a special place, held curative properties, maybe water poured over them, was used in healing rituals, could explain why people undertook long journeys to the site, perhaps seeking relief from ailments.
So it's an observatory, a cemetery, a temple, maybe a healing center, a truly multifunctional hub for Neolithic and Bronze Age Britain, a place that unified people.
Seems very likely. The scale of the monument, the evidence from Durrington walls, the presence of remains and artifacts from distant places, it all points to Stonehenge being a focal point that brought disparate communities together for shared ritual, feasting, and remembrance. Hashtag 3.4 modern discoveries and lingering questions.
Like the pyramids, the story of Stonehenge isn't finished, is it? New discoveries keep adding layers.
Constantly. Modern geophysical survey techniques, ground-penetrating radar, magnetometry are revealing a much richer landscape beneath the grass.
Like the Superhenge you mentioned earlier.
Yes. Durrington Walls wasn't just a settlement. Surveys revealed evidence of a massive ring of huge timber posts or pits beneath the bank there, possibly another major ceremonial structure, even larger than Stonehenge itself. And other buried features, avenues, pits, the whole area was ritually active.
And what about that theory that the blue stones were moved from another monument?
That's a fascinating recent development. Archaeologists led by Mike Parker Pearson excavated at a site called Wan Mon in the Presley Hills, the source area of the Bluestones.
And they found?
They found empty stone holes forming part of a dismantled stone circle. The size, shape, and orientation match features at Stonehenge, and one hole had unusual sediments matching the Bluestones' geology.
So the theory is, Stonehenge's bluestones were originally part of an older circle in Wales, which was then taken down and moved lock, stock, and barrel to Salisbury Plain.
That's the compelling argument. It suggests the builders of Stonehenge weren't just quarrying raw material, they were relocating an ancestral monument, perhaps bringing the sacred power of their homeland with them. It adds a whole new layer of meaning to that incredible journey.
Wow. What about acoustics? We talked about it with the pyramids. Does it apply here too?
There's research suggesting it might. Some studies indicate the stones, particularly the bluestones, have unusual acoustic properties. They can ring or resonate when struck, and the arrangement might have created specific sound effects, perhaps amplifying chanting or music during rituals, maybe even inducing trance-like states.
So many possibilities. But eventually its use faded, right? By around 1500 BCE.
Yes, the main construction phases seem to end around then. Why? Perhaps climate change, again, a period of cooling, might have made agriculture harder, large gatherings unsustainable. Perhaps the rise of new belief systems in the Bronze Age shifted focus away from these massive communal monuments. Or maybe society just changed. The stone temple fell silent, leaving us with this incredible evolving enigma. #outro.
So looking back at all three, the pyramids, the Indus cities, Stonehenge, it's an incredible sweep of human ambition, organization, belief, and also vulnerability.
Absolutely. The pyramids are just this stunning monument to what centralized power and a unifying belief system can achieve. Mastering labor, physics, logistics, building for eternity, that organizational capacity is maybe their biggest legacy.
But then the Indus Valley, brilliant planners, sophisticated cities, likely more decentralized, yet they were so vulnerable to environmental shifts, the drying rivers, the failing monsoons. A stark reminder that even the best plans can be undone by nature.
A lesson in fragility, definitely. And Stonehenge shows something else. The enduring power of shared ritual and belief over immense timescales. Not built by one ruler, but evolving over 1,500 years, encoding deep knowledge, unifying communities, a testament to long-term cultural continuity.
And the mysteries endure partly because of what's missing, isn't it? No detailed pyramid blueprints, the Indus script is silent, Stonehenge left no written manual. We're forced to piece it together.
Which is where modern science comes, in muon scans, DNA analysis from burials, isotopic analysis of remains, satellite surveys. We're constantly finding new clues, proving that history is never really finished. These ancient people still have things to teach us.
About ingenuity, resilience. The sheer human effort involved is mind-boggling. Hauling bluestones 140 miles, feeding 30,000 pyramid workers, maintaining drainage for a whole city. It speaks volumes about commitment.
It really does.
So we'll leave you, our listener, with this final thought to chew on. We've looked at the organized builders of Egypt, the adaptive city planners of the Indus Valley, and the dedicated sky watchers of Stonehenge. 3 different approaches to monumental tasks, 3 different legacies. Which one offers the most critical lesson for us today, facing our own challenges of climate change, resource management, global cooperation, and finding shared purpose?
It's worth reflecting on how ambition needs resilience, how planning needs to account for change, and how enduring monuments often tap into something deeper, shared belief, connection to place, understanding our position in the cosmos. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.